This is Hemant.
And Jessica.
And you're listening to the Friendly Atheist Podcast. Please go to patreon.com/Friendly Atheist Podcast to support this show. Get your ad-free and bonus episodes. Hello.
Hi, Hemant. How are you?
Excellent. We have so many things. I've been sitting on a story for a week, and we didn't record since this came out, so I'm so excited to share this with you because you're going to flip out.
Oh. That seems out of character
for me. Should we start with that one?
Yeah, I guess.
Let's start with this one. So last week, there's a church in Virginia, Hampton, Virginia. It's called the True Vine Apostolic Church of Christ, predominantly African-American church here. And what happened last week is this church started going viral on Black Twitter, Black TikTok.
Okay.
For all the wrong reasons. And then, because I'm not cool, it got to me last. But the story here is that...
Brown Twitter is mostly STEM stuff.
Yes. And now all of Twitter is a cesspool, as it always has been. This church had a woman get up in front of the congregation and apologize for what she did. And I'm going to play this for you. Listen, it's like a 2-minute clip, and it goes really slowly. I tried condensing it to make it faster. So I'm going to talk as we go through this. But basically, you're going to hear from the pastor and then this young woman.
How old is this young woman?
We don't know.
Oh,
I've heard numbers ranging from... a child to 19 to 23. It could be any one of those. Okay,
so
let's start with
a 45-year-old
Not 45.
Who has her shit together.
She's a young woman. Okay, let's start with this. You'll hear from the pastor.
We want Sister Miles' daughter want to approach the church at this time.
Sister Miles' daughter wants to approach the church. Okay, the girl gets up in front of the congregation. She's going to start talking in front of everybody.
Praise the Lord, saints.
Stand right in front of the congregation.
Stand in front of everybody.
Don't touch that table.
All right. What's the girl going to say?
I want to apologize to everybody in here because I am pregnant.
She's crying.
I'm sorry, y'all.
Oh.
And I just hope that y'all all forgive me and praying for me.
I hope you'll all forgive me and pray for me. They all applaud for her. She kind of runs off crying to the side. And now I'm skipping ahead to the pastor.
Church is praying for you.
Church is praying for you.
We ain't going to condone your sin now. We ain't going to do that. Ain't no baby showers going on. That's what you lose out at. You have a baby out of wedlock, ain't no baby showers. And nobody at this church about to attend one.
Jesus.
Mama shouldn't have one neither. You got to take care of your granddaughter. You can't condone sin. You don't have no private baby shower. You can't have no baby shower. You lose all the pride and glory. You lose all that. You just lose all that.
And then, finally...
Thank God that God didn't take you out of here.
Okay. So, in short, after this woman apologizes for being pregnant out of wedlock, this pastor says, we're not going to have any baby showers for you. You can't have any... what did he say? When you have a baby out of wedlock, ain't no baby showers. And no one at this church better attend one. And you better not have a private one. And all of that. You can't do any of that.
Also, the mom shouldn't have a baby shower either.
Mom can't throw one for you.
Oh, that's what he was saying.
Yeah.
I was like, oh,
so I don't know what's more disturbing. The fact that this church had this woman apologized to the congregation for something that's none of their business, or the fact that they kept the live stream going while she was doing this.
Oh, it's on a live stream.
This is on a live stream. And so they didn't mention the woman's name or her age during what you just heard.
Do you have video of this, or is it just audio?
Oh, I got
so you
video.
Can see her.
You could see her.
Does she look?
She looks distraught.
Well, does she look young?
Again, I can't gauge an age.
Yeah.
I wish I knew, because I think if I know she's under 18, that adds a different dimension to all this. Now, some online commenters who claim to know who they're talking about say she's a legal adult and not a child. though I don't know how much better that makes any of this. It was not hard to find the family online, and it wasn't hard to find the girl's mother defending the church's actions.
Do we
She
need to say
told people...
the little girl's name?
Nope.
Okay, good.
She told critics in a post that has either been deleted or not public anymore. She said, she was talking to the critics here because this clip got around and people were pissed off. So this mother says, to everyone that's concerned, we greatly appreciate it. However, I do want you to know that you all are interrupting my peace and is causing more damage than good. You are showing up, disrupting my church, my beliefs, and disrespecting my pastor. I am where I want to be and where I choose to be. We were not forced or manipulated to stand before the congregation. My daughter willingly approached the congregation and was welcomed and embraced with open arms. And then says some other stuff that's unimportant. But she says at the end, I stand with my pastor. I don't know. I watched the video. Was she willingly, did she willingly approach the congregation? Not the way I saw it. Was she forced or manipulated? Maybe not, but the peer pressure was definitely there.
Well, when people say forced or manipulated, it's like they have a gun to the back of their head. Like, truly.
Did you do it because you wanted to, really?
Peer pressure and having societal expectations and authoritative expectations. Yeah, you're going to fucking do it. Like, oh, this poor young woman. And I'm sorry, is there like a witch hunt to find the father of this
That is a
baby?
wonderful question because we learned nothing about the father. There
Unless
were plenty.
It's an immaculate conception,
right?
In which case they should be stoked.
I'll get to the father in a second, but online commenters equated this church to a cult. They said it represented the worst of church culture, that the pastor's actions made them want to burn every church down. I assume that's an exaggeration.
Oh, guys, no.
One commenter said his mother was forced to do something similar 40 years ago, and that some things never change. Like we said, was it really willing? Because the element of coercion is always huge. Like, she technically apologized on her own, but it's not hard to imagine the pressure she faced. And what about the pressure she now undoubtedly faces to get married before the baby's born, which, if she's an unwed mother, that's probably where they're going. Then, like you mentioned, there's the double standard. Because this woman is being shamed for being pregnant out of wedlock, we don't know the daddy's name whatsoever. How come he didn't have to apologize to the church? How come the men in that church are not stepping up to the microphone to confess their sins? Because if all Christians are sinners, why does this one require a public apology, right? And the irony in all of this is that this woman would not have had to do any of this if she quietly had an abortion instead. So by keeping the baby, presumably, and giving like visible evidence that she's pregnant, they decided to subject her to embarrassment, to make an example out of her. And the message this church is sending is that you're better having an abortion in private rather than keeping those fetuses if the circumstances are not what we want them to be. Right?
Jesus Christ.
And it shows you the problem with religious morality here, because the people in this church are not more moral than everyone else, but they sure as hell want to act like it. So they're saving their wrath for someone whose sin is visible. And they're not alone here. Plenty of churches do this. That's why the Catholic Church will say, like, being gay is not a problem. But if you're in a same-sex relationship or you act on it, then we'll come after you, right? It's why televangelists can scam people out of money behind the scenes. Just don't do it in front of the camera where we could see you. It's why Ted Haggard, a long time ago, had to resign from the National Association of Evangelicals. But televangelists who inflict abuse outside the spotlight can just stay in their positions for years. So right now, it's been a week. I have not heard anything from the woman who spoke in front of the church. She has...
And it was her mother who put out that post.
Yes.
Okay.
Basically, they've taken their Facebook profiles offline, which I understand.
Understandable.
But also, there's nothing... I heard plenty of people online say, well, I want to donate to her. I want to give to her for a baby shower. Because, again, a baby shower is not, let's celebrate your sin. It's, let me give you some diapers and baby stuff to help you out.
Yeah, it's
right?
about a community coming together to support young mothers.
And one of the people who posted this was the journalist Jamel Hill. And in the comments section, one of the co-hosts of The View said, I want to host a baby shower for this woman. And I get the outreach. I get
Which co-host? Joy
Sunny
Behar?
Hostin.
Oh, I don't know who that is.
But
Who's that?
I don't know. I don't watch the show.
I don't either.
So, but she basically said what
Is
a lot
Barbara
of people
Walters
were
still on
saying. No, she's dead. So they were saying they all want to contribute to this lady. And I'm looking at this like, she doesn't want your help. This family's made it very clear they're on the pastor's side.
Yeah.
So stop having sympathy for these people.
Well, okay.
Eh.
That's a bridge too far for me.
But they're not asking for help.
No,
they
not
don't want
asking
the
for
help.
help.
They're not accepting the help. They're not upset about what the church did. And if you want to say, well, they're in the cult, of course they've drank the Kool-Aid or whatever. Okay, fine. But they're not looking for a fundraiser. And I have seen no evidence that they would accept anyone's donations.
Yeah, it does seem like they've accepted their lot in life, which is horrible. Like,
It
Jesus,
is.
Like, imagine, oh my God, like being pregnant accidentally is fucking terrifying enough.
And we don't know what their situation is. I don't know how she got pregnant, what her options were.
At the beginning of this, I was going to bet dollars to donuts that the pastor was the father, but...
So did half the internet.
I mean, truly, right?
Yes.
Like, it just feels...
There is no evidence of that, by the way.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All very Scarlet Letter, isn't it?
The whole thing brought to mind several years ago. I think this is like maybe 2017-ish.
Is there blood on your jeans?
No, I don't know. Kids' food.
Oh my
That's
God.
what it is.
Jesus Christ.
Also, I was in a fist fight before this. Several years ago, the New York Times published an article about a girl who attended a Christian school. I don't know if you remember this.
Mm-hmm.
She attended a private Christian school. I think she was a senior. Yeah. She got pregnant, and she was then told, you can't attend graduation with your classmates. Basically, they punished her for breaking the abstinence rule while sending a very clear, quiet message that you totally would not have been punished if you had an abortion, which we're also against. But also, since you didn't choose that route, we're totally going to shame you. And she ended up announcing her pregnancy to her classmates, quote, during an emotional session in the school auditorium.
What?
Yeah, that happened at her senior
At her
year.
school?
Yes. And even after all of that...
Wait, was it a religious school?
Yeah, private Christian school. But even after all of that, that student wrote an essay basically defending both her decision to keep the baby, which, fine, whatever, you do you, but only offering kind of a mild rebuke to school officials. She's like, well, I did break their rules, so I guess that makes sense. And then she went on to attend a fundamentalist Christian college.
Oh.
So all that's to
how's
say,
she doing today?
I have no idea. This story is not really about the woman who had to apologize in front of the church. It's about the church. It's about the hypocrisy and the shame and the needless cruelty that religion can bring about. And a reminder that dogma can always get in the way of decency. I did see last week.
When did you write that one?
While on the toilet. Last week, some dude on TikTok, I don't know where this originated, but some guy, and this is what that mother was referencing in her post, some guy went to that church after this service and like confronted the pastor. Not physically, but like a protest, basically.
Hey, dude.
Like, what are you
I don't
doing?
like you very
How dare
much.
you? Yeah. I don't think that is helpful because the pastor's not going to change. And having some outsider who is not a member of his church condemn him in his building is only going to make him more defensive and act like he's a martyr. I think it's more strategic, if you disagree with what the church did, to use that incident as an example of what decent churches should avoid, not really waste any time trying to urge anyone in this church to change what they're doing. I don't think that's going to be very useful.
Oh, boy. What a mess.
Yep.
That poor little girl.
Is she?
Yes.
I had sympathy for like a minute.
Listen, no matter what the circumstances are, she's a young person in an extraordinarily vulnerable position and has just been let down by her entire community in concert. So, yeah, I hope she's doing good, Hemant.
As many people said online too, the irony is that all of Christianity exists because a teenager got knocked up outside of wedlock.
Honestly, that's what I was truly thinking, like, did nobody look into Immaculate Conception? Because I feel like that could get you pretty far. And then by the time they figure out your line, you have the baby and you gotta go.
Yeah. So,
oh, golly, that poor young woman.
I also have an update for you on the Jerry Coyne Dawkins fiasco.
Oh, those
but it's a good one. It's a good one.
Oh, what? How?
Because
Are
it
they...
doesn't involve them.
Oh,
after Jerry Coyne wrote an anti-trans screed and the Freedom from Religion published it and then unpublished it and all that we've talked about over the...
Unpublished it?
Yeah, FFRF, they took it down. And then they said, we're committed to LGBTQ rights. Well, this week...
Now we are, as of yesterday.
This week, 16 different secular, humanist, atheist organizations signed on to an open letter. Basically, the headline is...
Fuck you, Jerry Coyne.
Here's the thing. It says, we're affirming our commitment to protecting LGBTQ plus rights, especially as the new administration comes into power. And I'll quote from this letter here for a second. Here's one paragraph that stood out to me. We will not permit religious extremists to foment a moral panic, encourage harassment or violence, and enact dangerous policies that seek to force LGBTQ plus Americans generally, and trans Americans in particular, out of public life and out of existence. Nor will we sit silently or ignore when the talking points, misinformation, and outright fabrications of anti-LGBTQ plus extremists are laundered and given a veneer of legitimacy or acceptability by those who hold themselves out as voices of reason or science. It's a really good letter. It is important. Who signed on to it? American Atheists. I want to read this. I think this is important. American Atheists, the American Humanist Association, the Association of Secular Elected Officials, Black Nonbelievers, Camp Quest, the Clergy Project, Freedom from Religion Foundation, the Free Thought Society, which is based in Philly, Hispanic American Freethinkers, Military Association of Atheists and Freethinkers, Recovering from Religion, Secular Student Alliance, Secular Coalition for America, Secular Women, Society for Humanistic Judaism, and the Unitarian Universalist Humanist Association. Basically, every group that does anything in our spheres have signed on to this letter. Who did not sign on to this letter? The two mega atheist groups that have tens of members.
Which ones?
I don't know. And the Center for Inquiry.
Not which members, which groups?
I'm not naming them.
Okay.
And the Center for Inquiry, which merged with the Dawkins Foundation, they are the biggest ones that did not sign on to this letter because
that's a conspicuous absent.
They've spent all their time pushing anti-trans. Apparently, their next magazine that comes out, I don't know, in the next week is going to be all about, I don't know, the trans debate. They've announced this in advance.
The trans debate, just like the Jewish problem or what was the other one?
What's the debate that you think we're having here?
Yeah, the problem of color or whatever. No, you guys are just bigots and can't fucking deal with the world.
Yeah. So good. I appreciate that. Now, how does that actually come into play? I'm not sure yet. Right now, it's just a statement. And it's a good statement. It's important. And now you want to see if their actions back up what they're doing. And the argument, we've said this before, why should atheist groups care about LGBTQ rights? Because the reason they're under attack is usually coming from a place of religious conservatism, evangelical morality, whatever you want to call it. And if they're going to make it a church-state separation, I mean, even after they passed an anti-trans bill in the U.S. House this week, Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, said afterwards he was doing this because the book of Genesis says God created man and woman and not trans people. So if they're going to make this a religious issue, then you need non-religious people standing up in defense of LGBTQ rights, even if you think it's tangential to, I don't know what you think the mission of all these groups are. But I appreciate seeing that. I hope they actually live up to that. And then it's dependent on their members to hold them to it.
Well, when people, and of course we've gotten this for as long as we've been doing this show, certainly, that just because you're an atheist doesn't mean you're X, right? Liberal, pro-LGBTQ, etc. Which is true. And there's certainly, I would never, ever dispute that. However, if you want to be an atheist and just float through the world, that is completely your call. But if you're going to start to band together with other people and make groups like this, then your goal should be making a positive impact on the world. And what that looks like is protecting the underdog. And trans people are under attack in a huge way right now, and those are the people who need our protection, and those are the people we're going to dedicate ourselves to protect. If that's not your jam, Dawkins, that's fucking fine, but don't pretend that you have this like moral science objective superiority because you can see something that the rest of us are too, like the veil is drawn and we can't see the truth.
As they say, we will continue to advocate for policies that protect the civil and human rights of every community that comes under threat from the white Christian nationalist ideology. And they not so subtle jab at coin. For the more than 1.5 million trans Americans, this is the reality they're forced to live every day. It is not merely some academic debate.
And also, Dawkins, Jerry, I know you guys know the word bimodal. I know that you know it. Binary means one of two things. Bimodal means kind of two things, but there's a little gray area in between.
Funny thing is,
two, like, male and female, but there's gray area in between. And y'all know that.
Jerry Coyne gave a speech at the Center for Inquiry's conference like last October. They literally uploaded it this week to their YouTube channel. They're uploading all of them this week, but they uploaded it like this morning or something.
Oh, cool.
And he does acknowledge that, and he said this in his blog post too. He acknowledges what you just said and then continues with the takeaway that, yeah, but who cares?
But still.
It doesn't matter.
But still, that science isn't good enough for my feelings.
Right.
What jerks.
So good. Now, here's something you can look forward to. Some of these groups are big enough that they host conferences.
Mm-hmm. Guys, I'm available.
Who are they going to invite to these conferences?
Me, Jessica.
Is it, besides you, is it going to be any of these people who are some of the most famous names associated with atheism in some cases,
but
like
also
Dawkins?
Not necessarily, stalwart attendees of like Jerry Coyne's been to a few, but it's not like Richard Dawkins is at every American Atheist meeting or whatever. You know what I mean?
No,
like,
of course not. So who are they going to invite? Because the Center for Inquiry is inviting all the right-wing atheists to their stuff. I expect better than FFRF tends to draw in whoever the hell they want because they're a bigger group. They can afford it. But that's something to keep in mind if you're a member. Who are they platforming? Who do they think is worth their members listening to? And if it is someone who has a history of being Coyne-ish, then call them out on it. That's what needs to happen. But I'm glad they put that out there. They could have named some names. But all right, I'll take a more generic statement too.
Yeah, no. That I understand, and I think that's they're high roading them.
I will also say that a version of this letter, they are saying, like, look, these are the 16 groups that signed on to the letter. But if you are a representative of a group, and I think also individuals, American Atheists, I know on their website, they have a place where you can sign your name onto it as well as an individual. I did that. But anyone's welcome to do that as well.
You should. I should put up the link on the Facebook.
We will do that. Yes. Let me jump to a different story from North Dakota.
Oh,
yes.
I've been to North Dakota.
That makes the total population, I think, 3.
That's correct.
Well, the Republicans in North Dakota want to now force public school students to say the pledge. We're back at this fight. Yeah, Pledge of Allegiance.
Does nobody have anything else to do with their life?
If I asked you what's going on in North Dakota, I would have gotten to make kids say the pledge before I got to number 10.
Yeah, I guess. Fargo was a really cool little town. I liked it a whole lot.
This bill is sponsored by 11 Republicans in the House and Senate in North Dakota.
Republicans, you say?
It's almost comically extreme in what it's trying to change. Because as it stands, this will not surprise anybody, as it stands, public school boards in North Dakota can give their schools permission to say the pledge at the beginning of the day.
Wow.
In classrooms or over the loudspeaker. That's true pretty much.
Freedom.
That's pretty much everywhere. No one has to participate. No one has to stand. You have to be respectful while it's going on. Stop screaming while other people are trying to say it. Okay. It's not great, but it's legal and pretty much everyone does it that way. This bill, it's technically House Bill 1222 in North Dakota. This would change it. Here's what it says. Here's what the proposed law would say. A student of a public school shall recite the Pledge of Allegiance at the beginning of each school day. The only way out of this is if your parents give you explicit permission to not say it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Oh, boy.
That's the only way you can be excused from this. You got to go to your parents, who are totally going to be on your side when you say you don't want to say the pledge.
Have you met parents?
Right. And it goes on to say, during the Pledge of Allegiance, any unexcused student shall show full respect to the flag by standing at attention with the right hand over the heart. And
so even if you don't say it, you still have to do the pantomime?
I'm curious at how this is being phrased here, but any student has to stand at attention with the right hand over the heart and removing any head dress unless you have it for religious purposes. If you're excused, they don't actually say what you want to do.
Well, you have to stand at attention with your hand over your heart.
It says any unexcused student. I don't know. It's confusing.
Oh, interesting.
So I don't know what they're getting
really
at. Do they want you to leave the room? Do they want to scapegoat you and you're like, oh, well, little Billy here got permission, so I guess he can stand in the corner, sit in the corner quietly.
Yeah, like Blair Witch. You have to stand in the corner, face the corner until the Blair Witch gets you, I guess.
Right.
I don't remember how that movie ends.
And if they're anticipating any lawsuits over this, guess what? The same bill offers legal immunity to all staff, administrators, and board members who get sued over this because they actually have a section in the law that says all staffers, school board, whatever, they passed a law years ago to allow 10 Commandments displays in the schools as long as they're part of a larger package. Like, we have 10 posters in the school about laws and history. Right. And they said the 10 Commandments can be included in that. Well, they also changed the law to say if you're sued over this, everyone's immune. Like, you cannot be sued over this. Well, they changed that law to say you can't be sued over the 10 Commandments thing or the pledge thing we're doing right
Thank
now.
God. I have a bunch of questions.
Yes.
So what's the penalty?
Great question.
Thank you so
The bill
much.
lists 0 penalties for students who just defy this law by not standing or saying the pledge, even if they don't have parental permission. Obviously, the law, Supreme Court precedent for like decades upon decades, thanks Jehovah's Witnesses, says you don't need parent permission if you can't force a kid to say the pledge.
Yeah.
And if they say, I don't want to say it for religious reasons, which is what the Jehovah's Witnesses said in like the 40s. Yeah.
Wait, is that true?
Yeah. Supreme Court said, yeah, you're right. No one should be forcing you to do something that violates your personal convictions. So kids, you don't have to say the pledge. They can't make you.
I've never heard somebody say thanks to the Jehovah's Witnesses sincerely.
I know. It's one of the only things they should be thanked for. But also plenty of other people who are not religious have also made concerns. Obviously, under God is in the pledge. And a lot of atheists say, I don't want to say the pledge because I don't belong to a nation under God. Mm-hmm. The pledge also says we have liberty and justice for all. A lot of black students have protested saying the pledge because they know we don't. Mm-hmm. Kids who are smart have also said, hey, I know the history of the pledge, and the reason it was written is it was written when all these immigrants were coming to America, the late 1800s, and the reason it was written to say I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States is because they're implying, hey, immigrants, your old flag from your home country, no. That one doesn't matter anymore. It's an anti-immigrant statement, the pledge. Like, that's why you got to pledge allegiance to our flag, not yours, you immigrant scum. That's where they're going with it. That is part of the history.
I'm feeling really defensive on behalf of, like, 15-year-old Jessica, who just stood up and said the pledge and never thought twice about it.
How dare you?
I know.
And then our country is not always one that deserves admiration. So, like, why do you want to pledge allegiance to a nation that is so often the cause of chaos around the world? So,
is this your HBO special?
Yes.
I like it.
All of these reasons are reasons people may not want to stand for the pledge.
Right.
And these Republicans don't care. They want to force kids to fake their patriotism by reciting propaganda because that's how love and patriotism work in MAGA land.
Why do you think people in North Dakota decided to take up this mantle.
Thought you were going to say North Korea, and I would have said, yes,
that
correct.
would have been funny of
correct.
me. But, what do you think is going... are they just so lost in the sauce they're trying to regain control over something?
I think a lot of Republicans nationwide... I have one more story about this, but they're trying to get the 10 Commandments up everywhere.
Yeah.
And I think the answer is they see an opening, they have a trifecta in Washington, and they control the Supreme Court. So now they're trying to do all those culture war battles because they think, what are you going to do? Sue us over this? Great. We'll ask Samuel Alito for help.
I guess
So they're just trying to shove Christianity because now it's no longer just a culture war battle or positioning.
No,
they
it's
think they can win
battle.
on these cases.
I guess just if I had that kind of power, over a state, I just don't think the Pledge of Allegiance is where I would start. Even if my motivations are not what mine are now and they were some nefarious right wing, I don't know, everybody wears a matching jumpsuit kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
But I just don't think that the Pledge of Allegiance would even be on my agenda. You know what I mean? There's other cool shit we can get done. Let's I don't know.
I said, it's North Dakota. You figure out what they got going on there.
I would find my enemy and have their house declared a state park, and so they have to evacuate it.
Love it.
That would be funny.
Eminent domain, take control of it.
Right?
I like it.
That would be really
If you have to force kids by law to say they love the country, that means anything they say is meaningless.
Also, the first time I did the Pledge of Allegiance was in preschool, so I don't think I had
It's like prayer. You have to teach them early so that they get it in their heads before they figure out what the hell they're actually saying.
That is how I told my right from left for the first 20 years of my life.
Years ago, I did a podcast about the Pledge of Allegiance, but one of the most interesting stories that I took from that whole experience is that in 1916, there was an 11-year-old black child named Hubert Eves who got arrested because he didn't want to say the pledge. And when he spoke to a black newspaper at the time, this is what this 11-year-old child said. I'm quoting this. Isn't it wrong to have me bowing and worshiping a flag that is a dirty flag, one that does not give my mother and father protection, a flag that represents a government that allows Jim Crow cars, segregation in all public places in the South and other parts of the country, denies us a voice in state government, and who practices grandfather clauses and lets mobs take our people out and hang them without trial, show us no mercy in the courts, deny us the proper school education, disenfranchise our people, winks an eye at Southern concubinage, ostracizes us in every way. He was then arrested.
He was 11?
He was 11. That kid had it right over 100 years ago, and we've gotten no better.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Also, concubine.
Concubinage. I'm not sure what that's a reference to. I should know. I feel bad about that.
1916. I'm sure it has to do with
yes. Keep talking. Keep talking. This is going to end well for you.
No. I'm just assuming it's people who keep black people under, servant type conditions and use them as their, sex toys.
It's been a problem, and now Republicans are like, yeah, so what? We're going to do this anyway. Screw all of you. We have the power. And by the way, in North Dakota, they have the power to do this. HB 1222 has already been referred to the House Education Committee. Of that committee's 14 members, 12 are Republicans because they control the state. Yeah. And 2 of those Republicans are co-sponsors of the bill, including the committee's chair.
And they're all related because there's 14 people in North Dakota.
There you go.
Oh, boy. I truly, things like this always make me question everything. Of what are we, what is your goal here? Is it really, is kids standing up in their classroom, saying the Pledge of Allegiance at the beginning of every day, is that really what their goal is? Or is it just symbolic of a nation that unflinchingly follows its leaders no matter where they go or what they do? It's probably that one, huh?
I mean, we've already seen with Trump getting inaugurated, everyone's just bending over backwards to appease him like they did the first time around, and it's worse this time.
This is so bad.
Oh, it's only going to get worse. Don't worry.
Do you think we're going to get arrested for this podcast?
No one's listening.
That's actually fair.
Yeah. All right.
Don't tell your friends, everyone.
I have an update on a story from last week. I mentioned that West Virginia, they have like a water agency.
Oh, yeah.
And that they gave a $5 million grant
To Ohio.
To a Catholic college that is brand new called the College of St. Joseph the Worker. They give a $5 million grant to a brand new Catholic college in Ohio. Why
Great use of West Virginia's money.
For $5 million of water infrastructure? No, at least $1 million of it is for anti-abortion advocacy. And
The important message in West Virginia.
And for helping them build dorms and expand their offerings and things like that. And also, we mentioned last week that they didn't even do it right because in order for that grant application to be approved, at least like one cabinet official in West Virginia had to sign off on it. And the person who runs the water department said, yeah, I don't have that paperwork.
Oh.
They told me they were going to sign it, but they didn't give it to me.
Oh.
But then she signed off on the grant anyway.
Cool.
The update for you is that the American Humanist Association, with help from the ACLU of West Virginia, has already sued the water department authority here. And in the lawsuit, the AHA says, hey, we have members in West Virginia, and just like everyone in the state, they need access to clean water. And this is the opening of their lawsuit. Tens of thousands of West Virginians wonder each day where they will get clean water, as it does not run out of the taps in their homes. The defendant in this case, the West Virginia Water Development Authority, is tasked with providing financial assistance to communities to improve and protect water quality, protect public health, and encourage economic growth. The case at hand arises from the defendant's abdication of that duty when it instead provided $5 million of West Virginian taxpayer money to the College of St. Joseph the Worker, an out-of-state Catholic school. In doing so, the defendants in this case violated the guarantee of freedom from religion codified in the West Virginia Constitution, and that's why we're suing, basically. And they're right. By the way, the establishment...
they lay out a pretty compelling case, don't they?
The only argument they're making here is that, sure, the U.S. Constitution has the First Amendment, which has the Establishment Clause. Congress shall make no law establishing a religion, promoting religion. We know what that means in practice. It means church-state separation.
Yeah.
Well, state constitutions go even further, and in West Virginia's constitution, it says state funds cannot go toward the promotion of religion. Like, no privilege or advantage can be given to any religious group.
So it's a little more explicit?
Yes, and no taxes can support a church or ministry. So it is very specific, more so than the U.S. Constitution. So they're using the West Virginia Constitution saying, look, your own state law says you can't do the thing you just did.
Yeah. And
the lawsuit notes that the grant fund, where the $5 million was taken out of, that's funded in part by the taxpayers of West Virginia. And if a taxpayer-funded grant goes to a Catholic school to help it achieve its faith-based goals, which they were very clear that's what they're doing, that violates the Constitution. And the lawsuit says the Water Department Authority did this, quote, intentionally, knowingly, willfully, wantonly, maliciously, and in reckless disregard of the constitutional rights of West Virginians.
Ooh, somebody got their thesaurus out.
Yeah, they did. One other interesting twist to this is that when I was looking at a local paper about this lawsuit, it said the case was already assigned to a circuit court judge in West Virginia. His name is Richard Lindsay. He just got elected in November, so he's brand new to the bench. And from 2018 to 2022, who was this guy? He was one of the only Democrats in the state Senate. So, like, there's literally a handful of Democrats in the state Senate. He was one of them. And then in 2022, he ran for re-election. He lost. And then he ran for circuit court judge, and he won that race.
Interesting.
Which is only to say, like, that doesn't mean he's going to rule a certain way, but he's the sort of person who might take church-state separation seriously.
It's a better chance than otherwise.
There's no track record here. I couldn't find any evidence that this guy sponsored church-state separation bills when he was in office.
Sure.
He kind of did the boring, decent stuff you expect any politician in a state like a rural state to do.
Sure.
But none of it was really church-state related, not culture war related. So doesn't really have a track record. I don't know what it means, but interesting. Good luck to them.
Yeah.
I'm glad to see the ACLU of West Virginia, which suggested last week, we're looking at this.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, does that mean you're filing a lawsuit? Because you're not saying that. And now they have.
Cool.
So good.
Wow.
I have a totally different story for you, which involves an academic paper. Ooh. This is wild. Okay. Here's the title of the paper, and this is how you know it's not going to end well, okay? The title of this journal article, it's published in the Journal of Sociology and Christianity, which is a real journal.
Sociology and Christianity?
Uh-huh.
Mad Libs.
Yeah. And the title is Rape, Suicide, and the Rise of Religious Nuns. N-O-N-E-S. It's written by a sociology professor named Philip Truscott of Southwest Baptist University.
Uh-oh.
So you know it's going to end well. And there's your warning that we're going to talk about those issues. But basically, let me tell you what this dude did. He looked at state-level data, because that's the best he could find.
What state?
All of them. He was what are,
Yeah.
I want to know the religious demographics.
Yeah.
And you can get that state by state. But then he also wanted to look at suicide rates and sexual assault rates. And then he's like, well, now that I have all that information from all the states, I'm going to put all the graphs on top of each other and see if I can come up with something.
Okay.
And he said the rise of non-religiosity, this is his theory, has led to a loss in self-control. And that atheism is therefore a, quote, plausible mechanism driving both increased rape and suicide. He doesn't say atheism causes it, but he's like, you guys, look at my graphs. They're kind of moving in the same direction.
This is economic voodoo.
And as any fourth grader, I don't know, who has learned anything about statistics know, just because graphs go in the same direction does not mean one thing causes the other. It's the first thing you learn in any stats class. Correlation does not imply causation.
Yep.
And so, among other things, he says, like, he has data from the Uniform Crime Report published by the FBI and the national, like, no religion rates. And he looks at the campus rates for sexual assault by state, along with their state's non-religious numbers.
I'm sorry,
He's just pulling numbers out of his ass.
No, but you said he's pulling from universities when not several months ago we talked about how Liberty University...
Oh, we'll get there.
Oh,
yes.
great.
I'm a step ahead of you on this one.
Okay, well, you did prep work and I'm just working off the dome.
Yes. And so, like, the graphs move in a similar direction, but that's it. That's his proof. Like, the charts are something where if it's a game or a test where I ask you what are the logical fallacies here, I would just show you these graphs.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is find any statistic where the numbers peaked in 2018.
Right.
And you'd pretty much be able to play this game. So here's the problem with this graph. He's trying to find a link between, this is to your point, between atheism and sexual assault. Well, he uses information from college campuses, which is courtesy of Clery Act data from Congress, as a proxy for assault allegations, because they're supposed to keep track of safety on college campuses. It never occurs to him that campuses with more religious diversity and probably less organized religion, might also be the campuses where sexual assault is taken more seriously, which means it gets reported more often. And he's saying, look, in this blue state, basically, they reported sexual assault a lot more than in, say, Alabama. And this state also has a lot more non-religious people. So why don't you all go ahead and connect the dots?
Okay, but here's the problem with this, besides the junk science of it all, is that if you're going to assign causation, how do you know you're doing it the right way? What if...
Well, he didn't assign causation. He just implies
well,
it.
but why his conclusion very well could have been, well, as people have been getting raped more, they have been leaving religion. Like that, there is as much water to be held there as there is the other way around. Like you can't just make things up and then...
Well,
no,
this is
can't.
a journal of sociology and Christianity, so you can do whatever the hell you want.
Sociology and Christianity.
The funny thing is he acknowledges the deficit here. He acknowledges there might be a problem. He says in the paper, since more religious states might attach a greater social stigma to sexual behavior, victim blaming and correspondingly lower reporting rates might be the reason for lower apparent crime rates.
But more likely, it's atheists are evil.
And
rapists.
then he just ignores everything he just wrote and goes ahead and, continues with the paper anyway.
Well, this is a trash paper.
Yeah. Speaking of the Clery
I
Act...
bet the comment section at the bottom is great.
Oh, yeah, as with all journals. Speaking of the Clery Act, he neglects all the reports of religious schools looking the other way regarding sexual assault allegations on campus, as we've talked about. Liberty University had a $14 million fine because they didn't keep students safe from sexual violence because they didn't acknowledge that it was happening. They didn't tell people about it. And women on campuses like that know that if you come forward with stories, that might mean admitting you broke the rules regarding sex before marriage, or you were drinking, or you stayed out too late past curfew because you're 20 and you need a curfew. And at some level, if there are more reports of sexual assaults, it's partly because new policies have made it easier for victims to come forth, even at religious schools. But unless you have any actual data linking religion with sexual assault, it would be unfair to say one causes the other. That is not what this dude is doing. He's just linking these factors left and right.
And I'm sorry, he's a pastor? Does he have
he's a professor.
A professor?
Yeah.
Of what?
Of the Christianity.
Like, does he have a degree that is relevant to
He's a sociology professor. He has a legit degree.
Oh, boy.
But also he's trying to get published.
Where does he teach?
At some Baptist school. So Religion News Service, they asked him, how do you link these factors? What do you hope to achieve by perpetuating these claims? And this is from the article. While he falls short of claiming that loss of religion causes more suicides and assaults, Truscott has subsequently argued that his findings prove the need for more state vouchers for private schools.
What?
Most of which are religious.
What?
Because I guess if you don't want to be victims of sexual assault, send your kids to a private religious school.
Are you sure? Because I think you just said that they don't report
No,
crimes.
that was me talking. He kind of acknowledged it, but he ignored it.
I see.
And then he says families that choose religious school for their kids can play a role in reversing the decline of religion in America, which, all right, but who cares? So he's cherry-picking facts to support his conclusion instead of considering all the possible reasons numbers might be moving in a similar direction. Right. It never occurs to him that a decline in organized religion and a rise in violence could be caused by different factors entirely.
Actually, I'm going to push back with you about that because he just said rise in violence, and that's not what he's positing at all. He's saying a rise of sexual assault and suicide, which makes me think that, violent attacks, murders, burglaries, things like that are not falling into his pattern as well as he wants, so he eliminated them. I think that suicide and sexual assault are probably the only two that followed the path that he was looking for in the first place. So I'm sure there's like a domestic abuse thing and a gun violence thing and things like that, but he probably dropped those because gun violence doesn't correlate. And
I mean, I wish I could see draft one. He also said...
But don't you think that's what he did? Of only pulled the acts that followed his...
Maybe. I'm sure if there was proof that atheism was connected to higher burglary rates, I'm sure that would have been in here.
Right?
I don't know what he looked at.
So I just think this is cherry-picking garbage.
He did say a plausible mediator between religious non-affiliation and rape is increased drug and alcohol use. The non-religious are associated with increased drinking and illegal drug use.
Citation needed?
I'm sure. I don't know.
Is it cited?
Here. I don't know.
Are those numbers?
This is in the paper. He says the increasing... I usually eliminate citations when I'm quoting something, so I don't know what he had in the original. But he said the increasing state-by-state trend towards recreational marijuana legislation may have accelerated this trend.
Oh, yeah. Potheads are the most violent people I know. That's why I'm always out getting in scraps on Saturday nights.
He says,
and not playing Stardew Valley and watching The Office.
He says, as self-intoxication is often presented as a victimless crime, it is easy to believe atheists and agnostics feel free to partake once the element of religious self-regulation is removed. To put it another way, some non-religious men made a short moral step into substance use and then, in a diminished state of self-control, made a much larger one into criminality. So you tried the marijuana, and then you started sexually assaulting all the people. That's how he thinks it works.
What is he talking about? Wait, so a non-religious person, because they're non-religious, is going to take a drink. Because famously, religious people don't drink. That's why when you go to Irish Catholic wakes, they're always a sober and somber affair.
Yes. And here, drink this wine. It's made of Jesus.
Yeah, that doesn't even... Like, he must have found some bullshit number somewhere that says that religious people use booze and weed less than non-religious.
And he's jumping to conclusions.
This is another 94% woke situation
right.
where you're just making up numbers.
So actual sociologist Ryan Cragen...
Is this peer-reviewed? Is this a peer-reviewed journal?
Yes. But sociologist Ryan Cragen, who is good at this stuff, he told Religion News Service, everything we're talking about, it's a shoddy argument. He could play the same game in the other direction if he didn't care about facts. Because he said, look, the most religious states in the country have the highest rates of gun violence. Mm-hmm. He said, quote, if I were to use his logic, then I should be able to argue that evangelicals are more likely to kill people. But he's not making that claim.
That's what I was saying before. Remember how you said this guy's really good at this?
Yeah.
That means I'm good at this.
Cragen also pointed out, like, look, there's a strong correlation between iPhone sales and the rates of rape and suicide. And then he joked with Religion News Service, if, as True Scott claims, correlation is causation, evangelicals are murderers and Apple is the leading contributor to suicide and rape in the U.S. Mm-hmm. I also talked to sociologist Phil Zuckerman, who is, I'm going to quote from here before, I've said this in some of my talks too. He has made the argument that if anything, atheism is correlated with more morality, not less. This is what Phil has said in the past. In terms of who supports helping refugees, affordable health care for all, accurate sex education, death with dignity, gay rights, trans rights, animal rights, and as to who opposes militarism, the government use of torture, the death penalty, corporal punishment, and so on, the correlation remains. The most secular Americans exhibit the most care for the suffering of others, while the most religious exhibit the highest levels of indifference. Mm-hmm. So I asked him about this paper, and he said, if it were true that secularization causes harm, the specifics harm that this guy's talking about, quote, then why don't we see the highest rates of rape and suicide in the highly secularized nations of Scandinavia, Estonia, Czech Republic, UK, Japan, etc. Even if you look at Canada, the most secular province, British Columbia, doesn't have the highest crime rate. And he said British Columbia's rape rates, reported, I should say, is well below the national average. He told me the bottom line is that rape rates and suicide rates are caused by many, many factors, economic, cultural, political, psychological, historical, and to pin either on secularization is absurd. So, fair point. And interestingly enough, this dude, True Scott, he had a lot of trouble publishing this paper because he said to Religion News Service that other social science journals would not print it.
Oh, you don't say.
But the Journal of Sociology and Christianity, which is published by, wait for it, the private Christian Omega Graduate School and the Christian Sociological Association.
Okay.
They said yes. And why did they say yes when all the legit journals said no?
Because they have no scientific scruples.
This is with Religion News Service. He said in an interview, True Scott claimed that if his research had linked greater incidences of suicide or sexual assault to more widespread religious beliefs, journals would have flocked to publish his study. Quote, the social science journals, they lean to the left politically, True Scott said. They are very anti-religious.
We need to get this on video because I want everybody to see Hemmett's little act outs that he does when he plays characters. They're wonderful.
It brings to mind the Stephen Colbert thing, like reality has a well-known liberal bias, right? Or just tossing this out there. The other journals don't want faith-based propaganda where the holes in the logic are this obvious.
Yeah. And also, I was trying to remember a thing that that I had seen on correlation versus causation, and I found it. It's a graph that that shows a correlation between Nicolas Cage movies and people drowning in pools.
It's perfect.
And it's
right
perfect.
on top of each other. There you go.
That's how you know that Nicolas Cage has killed so many people.
And when RNS brought up, hey, True Scott, all your conclusions make absolutely no sense. What say you? Here's RNS article.
You're just saying that because I'm religious.
No, here.
Oh.
True Scott said that he is glad the paper is getting attention, even if it's negative attention, and hopes it leads to more study about the social implications of the decline of religion. To critics, he simply says, prove that I'm wrong.
Well, yeah, that's what
That's what
That's
they
what
already
our
did.
job is.
But also, like,
they've done that.
That
and we
implies,
told
like,
you already.
yeah, I'm putting bullshit out there all I want.
Yeah,
it's your
suck
job.
it.
It's your job to prove I'm bad at this. Not my job to prove I'm good at this, apparently.
Is very much a
What
prove
the
that
hell?
God doesn't exist kind of deal. Of like,
By the way, in case anyone's actually curious about these stats, there are papers that say atheism and suicide rates are linked. There are some that say they are not. Usually the bigger issue is, do you belong to a community, which churches can provide, rather than anything stemming from godlessness itself. And as for sexual assault, if the argument is that God keeps you moral, and therefore atheists are more likely to commit that sort of violence, all you have to do is look at all things Catholic Church or all the daily barrage of headlines involving pastors getting arrested for something to know how broken that line of reasoning is.
yeah, true. There's whatever the George Orwell quote about like when they tell you not to believe your eyes but believe their story or whatever. I butchered that, but that's what it feels like. Of like, yeah, we know all of the, like you said, Catholic Church scandals and the all of the
And they
crimes
just
that have been
dismiss all
committed.
that.
And
Few bad eggs.
because I don't, oh my God, it makes me fucking, like when people talk about like, teachers are child molesters. It's like, no, dog, pastors are. We have this,
There's a reason we don't talk about it on this podcast because there are so many of those stories that we can't cover all of that all the time.
I truly remember maybe 2 years ago, I'd sent Hemin a story about like, a pastor like fucking running a sex ring or something out of his basement. And I sent it to him and he's like, oh yeah, we get like 8 of those a week. I don't have time to cover all of them. And that was a pretty devastating thing for me to learn.
I mean, FFRF sends out their member newspaper, and they used to have a section where they're literally, it was called the Black Collar Crime Blotter, because they just collected every one of these stories, and they had enough to print it. And I think they just decided, this is... we're not trying to shame these people for stuff. Not all of it is more serious than the rest. I don't know what they did with it. So they don't publish it anymore. But the point is, there are a lot of those stories. And this dude's like, yeah, but I found a graph and 2 of them. And they look kind of similar. So I'm going to get something published. By the way, creationists, the Answers in Genesis people, they publish their own journal as well.
Capital J Journal?
Like, they make it look with pretty fonts and everything.
Sure.
And they make it like, we just published a paper on creationism. And
boy, it's got a seal on it and everything.
And they're like, it's a peer-reviewed journal. Yeah, but your peers are dumb.
Yeah.
So
it says et al. At the end, so you know it's smart.
it's great.
Wow, that's stupid.
I got one last story for you.
Okay.
South Dakota, because we have to go to the other one.
Also been to South Dakota.
I'm not sure why we need 2 Dakotas, but they're now considering their own bill to force public schools to post the 10 Commandments in every classroom. By the way, a lot. No idea where that song is from.
It's Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah, don't listen. So they are doing...
It's about a murder spree.
Do you know how many states are doing their own 10 Commandments thing right now? It's a ton. It is a ton.
Arizona, right?
Oh, you're going to miss.
Mississippi.
It's like
Texas,
half of them. Half the red
Dakota.
states are doing like 10 Commandments in classroom bills, even though in Louisiana, they actually got that law passed. And then a judge is like, what are you doing? This is illegal. And then Louisiana's like, yeah, but we're going to keep appealing this until Sam Alito gets around to it. So that's what is going on at a federal level.
Don't get why they care.
In South Dakota, there's a new guy who just got elected, a Republican. His name is John Carley. He did this last week where he went to the local media and he's like, you guys, I'm sponsoring a bill to get the 10 Commandments in school. And everyone's response is, dude, you haven't even gotten sworn into office yet. Calm the fuck down. You don't go here. He said in that newspaper article, we need to illustrate our history and truth. Some people may want to say we don't want to talk about these topics, but the 10 Commandments certainly were a part of the founding of our country. And then he added, if we find kids honoring their father and mother, a lot of parents will be happy about that. If we find people are not stealing, lying, or murdering, I think our sheriff department and law enforcement will certainly be happy. So that's his defense of why he wants to do this.
So his defense is if people stop doing crimes, we would be better off.
And his solution to stopping those crimes is putting up the 10 Commandments in public schools because he thinks that's going to change theft and murder rates because apparently the laws that the government he just got elected to passes have apparently no effect on anything.
I mean,
if the 10 Commandments lowered murder rates, why are you passing laws to address crime at all? And if they don't improve murder rates, why are you wasting everyone's time?
Well, I'm sure we can do sort of a little experiment. Let's see. In Illinois, we don't have the 10 Commandments on the grounds of our Capitol building. In Texas, they do. So could you just quickly look up, is Texas more violent than Illinois on the whole? Because
Siri says yes.
Oh, interesting. So the 10 Commandments didn't protect those 50 people from freezing to death in their homes in Texas?
The guy sitting on death row in Texas right now says not true.
Oh.
Right. Doesn't help.
Cool.
Doesn't cause anything.
Neat. Okay.
So this guy says it's a
I
part
got a paper to write.
This guy says the 10 Commandments are part of the founding of our country.
Oh my God, who cares? Then
All
put the
that
Constitution up. Like, that's the other thing.
No. The
if
Constitution.
it's so important to the founding fathers, maybe do the thing that they wrote, like the Bill of Rights. Maybe that is that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to run for office, and my platform is going to be putting the Constitution, the Bill of Rights in every classroom.
Why? So Republicans can burn it?
Just so if they say, oh, no, we want the 10 Commandments. Why? This is actually relevant to this country and our founding fathers. If you're so horny for the founding fathers, let them speak for themselves.
They do not care about the founders.
They're horny for them.
They would say they are. They are not.
Oh, did you see there's going to be a new season of Telling Jefferson Lies?
Yes.
I'm very excited about
I know
it.
you are.
You're not?
No, it's fine. It's a good podcast.
I really like the podcast. Warren Throckmorton. It's such a good name.
So we've already talked about why, even if you got this passed, why the commandments are dumb, why they're not going to stop kids from doing whatever it is they do. You think kids read? That's also a dumb thing to think, much less
Maybe
getting
if they
into...
put it up on Snapchat.
That's lame. God, you're old. So there's no educational benefit for this. It's all religious all the time. Kindergartners do not need to be told to not commit adultery. And no public school teachers are clamoring for the government to do this. But then, that guy gave that interview to the local press like a week before. Not only is he not in office yet.
The South Dakota guy?
Yeah. Not only is he not in office yet, the bill hadn't been released yet on the government's website. So he's like, don't worry, it's coming. I already turned in my paperwork to the office. And so I finally saw the text of the bill, Senate Bill 51. And this is interesting because he's learned nothing from any of the 10 Commandments things any other state has done. So there's many sections here. A couple of these are interesting. Number 1 says it's got to be a large poster of the 10 Commandments. It's got to be large and easy to read
and
with the text of the commandments has to be the focus. It doesn't say it has to be in English. Doesn't say there cannot be other symbols like a satanic pentagram in the background. He forgot all of that stuff. He then says... that here's the list that you have to include on the posters, but you can write these or substantially similar language. So you can rewrite the commandments as you see fit, as long as they match, which is fine. The commandments aren't going to change much, but those are not the 10 moral rules you would make if I told you to come up with 10 moral guidelines.
God,
right?
not at all.
Also, there are different translations of the Bible. Yeah. So when you, as a school district, when you pick a version that you want to put up in classrooms, you are saying this version of the Bible is what we endorse and not all the other ones. So it's not just... So by putting up the 10 Commandments, it's not just an admission that you don't care about non-Christians. It's an admission you don't care about other kinds of Christians other than whichever version of the commandments you put up.
Right.
There's another section that says you can't sue us because all the posters have to include disclaimers about how this is historical. Right? And those disclaimers say things like, they're very long, but they say things like, the 10 Commandments were also included in public school textbooks published by educator William McGuffey. ... A version of his famous McGuffey Readers was written in the early 1800s and became one of the most popular textbooks in the history of American education, selling more than 100 million copies. But the argument is that the commandments were used in something called the New England Primer, McGuffey Readers, in textbooks by Noah Webster. But as lawsuits have shown in the past when people are arguing against these disclaimers, guess what? The New England primer that this guy cites, that was used almost exclusively in religious schools before public education was a thing. The McGuffey reader, they have a story about the Ten Commandments, but other versions of it don't. And one story about the Ten Commandments doesn't mean it was the focal point of it.
Right.
And like, there are all kinds of reasons those textbooks are no longer in use. Right?
Yeah.
Like, we should not be paying attention to those books. And lawyers on the side of church-state separation have argued, when they argued against the Louisiana law, which does the thing South Dakota is trying to do right now, they said in the lawsuit, there is no evidence of a long-standing, let alone unbroken, historical acceptance and practice of widespread, permanent displays of the Ten Commandments in public schools. So this dude's saying, you got to put up the Ten Commandments because, well, it was in a story in a textbook in the 1700s.
So
even if that's true, it's not a poster that they put up on the wall.
Right,
so what are you using as your argument? The reason the law cites some old textbooks used before America became religiously diverse and before we adopted public education and before we understood how evolution and toilets work is because that's the only history they can ever cite in their defense.
Yeah.
And even then, those textbooks didn't call for putting the Ten Commandments in classrooms, and the Ten Commandments were not even significant texts in those books.
Yeah.
They were not prominent. They weren't in public schools. They weren't on the walls. So why are these disclaimers going to help anything? Section 3 says, hey, schools, if you want to make this legal, like we know you might want to put up other historical documents around it, like the Mayflower Compact, the Magna Carta, the Declaration of Independence, all that stuff. They say you may display those other posters next to the Ten Commandments.
Sure.
So you have to put up the Ten Commandments, but you may put up these other
Oh my
ones.
God, thank you so much.
Right?
I really like the party of small government.
Right. So this is attempting to get the commandments in line with the law, saying they're one of many historical and legal documents. But even this bill says, yeah, but those other ones are optional. So that doesn't help. Another one says school boards may, a section of the law, the bill this guy sponsored, it says school boards may accept donated posters or donations of money so you can buy your own posters. It does not say officials have to accept the donated displays, though, which means all these school boards, they would then be in the position of approving or rejecting donations. And that's going to lead to legal problems. Because if I submit my pentagram 10 commandments and they say no, well, why are you saying no to mine? I fulfilled the law's requirements.
Yeah.
And if you're saying no to me, maybe you're discriminating against me on religious grounds. So, like, why are you putting all these school officials in the pathway of a possible lawsuit?
Wild.
Yeah. Another section of this dude's bill.
Whatever happened to the "In God We Trust" on all the school walls? Didn't we try to do that for a long time?
It's not Christian enough. It's too generic. They want to go all in on Jesus.
You know what they should go with?
We're a year away from nativity scenes in every classroom.
You know the set of Oliver? There's a huge banner that goes over the top that says "God is love," and it's like,
is it really?
in the little boy's workhouse?
Oh, that's
when
funny.
they're all starving and sing a song about food, glorious food. So that's what I'm proposing for.
I did that musical once. I was a gruel server.
I was
very good at it.
A dancing skeleton.
Nicely done. Section 5 of this dude's bill. It changes a law that requires all schools to teach kids about the constitutions of the U.S. and South Dakota between 8th grade and high school. It now requires schools to teach, that stuff, and the Declaration and the Bill of Rights, and the 10 Commandments presented as a historical legal document, including the influence of the 10 Commandments on the legal, ethical, and other cultural traditions of Western civilization.
But it's not. It's not a legal document.
Sorry, it's in the bill now.
Sorry, but words have meanings, and legal document has a meaning, and it is not some shit you like.
Funniest thing is this part of the law that he wants to amend says, what do you have to teach kids in like 8th grade through high school?
Yeah.
It says the Constitution of the United States, Constitution of South Dakota, Declaration of Independence, Bill of Rights. This dude inserts a paragraph about the 10 Commandments, specifically saying you got to teach how this influenced the white people at the beginning of the country's founding.
Oh, you guys.
So this bill would force kids to learn a false David Barton-esque approved version of American history that puts Christianity at its forefront, even when it has no business being there.
David Barton is one of the... I guess I'm done talking.
Yes. And the indoctrination has to start early, because what I said is you have to teach them about the Constitution like 8th grade to high school. Well, this now says you have to teach kids this stuff sometime between 1st and 4th grade, then again between 5th and 8th grade.
Then you can really dive into the adultery part.
Yeah.
That's stupid. This is a stupid bill, and these people who are trying to pass it are stupid.
There used to be a law in the state that allowed districts to put up the 10 Commandments alongside other historical documents.
Haven't they always been allowed to put whatever the fuck up they want?
Pretty much. Well, this guy's bill would repeal that part of the law. It's just done. Why? Because the only purpose of his bill is to promote Christianity. So here's the thing. Functionally, this South Dakota bill is the same as the one Louisiana enacted last year, and which has already been declared illegal as we wait for the appeal ruling.
How many millions of dollars do you think have been collectively wasted on these bills?
Not enough. They have plenty of money. Let's use it all up in the courts. So the bill didn't work in Louisiana, but South Dakota Republicans now want to copy it because they don't care about students. Here's the thing. Will it pass? Probably. It's South Dakota. They're only Republicans in the South Dakota legislature.
Yeah, I guess Louisiana does have a lot more blue pockets than
South
Dakota.
But if they do pass it, there's going to be a lawsuit. And this bill is so poorly written that even right-wing judges are going to have a hard time trying to let it slide. I'm sure they'll try. But it's like, dude, give us something to work with. You're so trying to push Christianity that we're not able to get this done. So for now, nothing's happened. He just filed this bill. But I would also tell you, this dude who sponsored it, John Carley, he is also the South Dakota chair for the group run by former Arkansas lawmaker Jason Rapert, the National Association of Christian Lawmakers. This dude is the South Dakota chair for that organization.
Forgot about Jason.
Yep, he's running his little Christian politician club.
That's right.
And this is the sort of thing they're doing. They're trying to tell everyone in their club, hey, we just sponsored this bill in our state. You should all do it in your states. They get together often, and this is what they do.
I know I'm beating a dead horse, but Christ, like, if you have this kind of power, why is this the petty bullshit you're wasting it on?
What are they going to do? Help people? If you're not concerned about that, it's amazing how much bullshit you can get done.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think if I were a politician, I would do a lot of public works projects and make them name them all after me.
Everything's a national monument by executive order, and we're done.
There's a Bloomkeyville in Wisconsin. Did you know that?
Nice. That's all I got.
Yeah.
What are we talking about in the bonus?
Well, I'm going to Nashville next week. So I'll tell you a couple of my plans there.
I want to talk about Beast Games. I've been watching that for some reason.
Mr. Beast?
Because I hate myself.
Isn't he, like, not great?
I'll tell you in the bonus.
Okay. Daddy's birthday was last week.
Aww.
She's 8 years old. I love her very much, and she's still as dumb as ever.
Yay.
And I want to tell you about Badlands because that song is stuck in my head, and I want to tell you about
the song or the actual place?
The story that behind the song.
Oh, okay.
It's very interesting. It's a Bruce Springsteen classic, and when we went through the Badlands, I listened to it like 15 times.
Nice.
I think that is all
right. Go support us at patreon.com/friendly atheist podcast. Go to the iTunes and leave a review wherever you get your podcasts.
A review like this one. Hemmett and Vamp really quick. I'm almost there.
Yes. And you should just give us cash. Throw it at your radio right now.
Radio?
I don't know
we
how
don't
it
have any
works.
new reviews.
I vamped for nothing.
Yeah, and it was so good and so effortless.
Thank you. All right. We'll see you next week.
Bye.